We can get started, and as people join, they can kind of catch up. This session is also being recorded. We will post the video on YouTube and share the link with all of you in case you drop out or want to catch up on any of the parts of the session later. So yeah, thank you again for joining the final session of aRoundTable. This is the fourth event in our four-part event series, and we'll kind of go over basically the outcomes of the previous sessions in case some of you weren't able to attend to those, so we can show you what happened with each of the different teams in each of those events. Then we'll explain sort of what is going to happen during this session in terms of the exercises and things we'll do to build on some of the ideas and solutions that were developed in previous sessions. And then we'll break out into the Milan, Florence, Africa, and Portugal communities. So you can have discussions, as Carlotta mentioned, in Italian or Portuguese or whatever language you prefer, in those breakout rooms to discuss these ideas and build on them further. Then we'll come back together towards the end of the event and do a bit of sharing of outcomes, sharing of ideas. And lastly, we'll kind of share what we envision to be a follow-up after the sort of final session of aRoundTable and the following sort of events. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Just a very quick introduction for those of you who aren't aware of aRoundTable and what we're doing here. We're essentially a group of circular economy club leaders, engineers, designers, researchers, etc. And we essentially came together last year in order to understand how can our communities build back better from the COVID pandemic, and how can we specifically use circular economy thinking to rebuild our communities and initiate circular projects and activities in our communities. And we essentially came up with aRoundTable, a sort of global circular economy collaboration initiative using that uses design thinking to really involve different stakeholders in our communities, citizens, government officials, businesses, etc., in order to come together and co-design, co-develop projects that can fast track the circular economy transition. And we kind of came up with a four-part series of events. We've had three so far. The understand, define, and make events have already happened, and those focused on identifying various problems in our communities, different solutions that already exist, defining a particular area to focus on within the team, and then ideating and developing potential ideas to address that specific issue. And then in this session, we'll essentially kind of build on that. And the kind of approach is meant to allow our communities to have a methodology and a toolkit in order to come up with actionable projects that we can implement in our communities. I'll quickly share with you the sort of outcomes from the previous sessions. Here, I'll add in the chat the link to the Miro board here for the previous sessions, and I'll also add the link to the Miro board for this session. So essentially, you know, what we did in previous sessions was really kind of explored all the different kinds of issues that our communities faced as a result of the pandemic, but also just long-lasting issues that our communities faced in general. Things like closure of businesses, waste, single-use plastics, poor waste management, etc., and outlined what are the sort of causes and consequences of those key problems, and also what kind of solutions already exist in our communities. Those are the ones in green, in order to identify what are the kind of issues and what are the gaps in terms of what's not being addressed. And from that, the next session kind of went into a bit of prioritization. What are the kind of quick wins that our communities can quickly address that are easy to come up with actionable projects to address them? And you'll see that the different communities had very common sort of quick wins that they identified. And they also identified different stakeholders that are key in order to be involved to come up with solutions and address these issues, from companies to citizens to universities, municipalities, NGOs, etc. And they were also very common across the communities. And in the last session, there was a bit of brainstorming in order to come up with a particular solution that the teams were interested in working on in their communities. And you'll see that these are the sort of 3 ideas that came out of the last session. So Portugal came up with a great idea to improve intergenerational connectedness between nursing home residents and students in schools, to enable a sort of transfer of knowledge of local skills and ways of production that would have been lost. And the Africa team came up with the idea to create a community center with equipment to sort of upcycle waste into products, plastic waste, organic waste, etc. And the Florence team, the Italian team, came up with an idea to come up with a sort of marketplace to exchange and reuse leather waste and leather dead stock. So yeah, those are some of the ideas that the teams came up with that you all can sort of build on further. And if there are, of course, other ideas or other elements to the idea that you want to incorporate in your discussions, definitely feel free to do so. So those are some of the sort of outcomes from the previous sessions. And today, the idea is to build on that to understand how to really release these solutions. And this should say during the release phase. Yeah, so the main aims of this session are to kind of identify how can we scale these solutions and really expand their development to address the problems that we identified before. And how can we develop sort of an implementation plan in order to identify what are the activities, the timelines, the funding and resource needs, and who are the other stakeholders that we need to involve, and what would their roles be. So in order to do that, we have a Miro board that we've set up for session 4. Very quickly, this is a sort of overview of it, and we'll jump into the board itself so I can show you in more detail. But the general idea is to kind of have these areas of the board that are particular to all of your different teams, and to kind of work on these 2 exercises, a sort of scalability plan and an implementation plan, in order to take the ideas for solutions that you came up with in the previous sessions and identify how you can scale up the idea, what are the costs and risks and resources required for scaling, and a sort of implementation plan to list out the activities, timelines, budgets, and responsibilities. And this is just meant to be a start of the discussion. So hopefully you can kind of build on it in even after the session. We only have about 60 minutes for the discussions during this event, but these boards are going to be available and accessible the entire time. So even after the event, feel free to kind of build on and work on and collaborate on these ideas as a team afterwards. And we'll also share later on sort of how we envision aRoundTable supporting that process. So yeah, I will maybe quickly share the link to the Miro board so everyone has it. So this is the session 4 Miro board link. You all should have edit access with this link. So as soon as you click on it and jump into it, this is what you'll see. I see some of you are getting into it already. So yeah, essentially there's a quick example of how this kind of these exercises could look. So if you take the idea of, for example, a community center for sharing used items, how can we scale this idea? Well, we can think about building centers in other neighborhoods besides the one that we start off in, maybe in other cities in our region. Can think about potentially expanding it to a community, a short sort of sharing center for companies or NGOs or city agencies, aside from just citizens. Can think about resources like we need physical locations, volunteers or staff to run the center, a web platform to list all the items that are available, etc. And there's some risks to scaling as well, monitoring and tracking items, managing supply and demand, coming up with a feasible business model. So those are some of the things you can think about in terms of this scalability exercise for your idea. And then when it comes to the implementation plan, It's just meant to be a rough outline of what is required to make this a reality. So if we wanted to create a community center for used items, the first thing we have to do is find a location. Here's the timeline by when we want to do that. What are the sort of costs involved? Who would be responsible? Someone from the team or another stakeholder. Creating sort of a website for it to market the initiative, maybe organizing a sharing event for the community to actually come to the center and test how that would work. And then sort of an ongoing initiative to kind of get support from the city to market the event. So yeah, just a very quick example to show what are the kinds of things to think about in terms of implementing this idea. And there could be more complicated questions as well, like, do we want to create a startup out of this? Is this a joint venture between multiple organizations? Who wants to be the sort of entrepreneur to create a company or entity that is responsible for this, etc. And those are things you can also explore during the session. So yeah, as I said, the different teams have their own spaces, so you can start working on it. I saw the note that the sort of Milan team has already developed an idea and had some initial thoughts that they put in. And the outcomes and ideas from session 3 are also provided on the left here, if you want to reference that as you work through the exercises in this session. So yeah, let me quickly stop there. And before we get into breakout rooms, I don't know if anyone had any questions. Anything was sort of unclear. Okay, great. Yeah, if you have any problems or issues, just feel free to message me in the chat. I'm gonna open up the breakout rooms now. And what should happen is that all of you should automatically be assigned to the different rooms based on the email addresses that you use to register and the email addresses that we have on file for you. But if that does not happen, please let us know, and we will try to move you to the right place. So let me open all the rooms now. And let's see. Okay, let me just start assigning people who haven't been assigned already. Let's see here. Sorry, it didn't work quite as effortlessly as I'd hoped. So I will just have to assign people manually. Let me quickly do that. And if I get the assignment wrong, I think you should also be able to move yourself between the different rooms. Just start recording again. Okay, I think everyone should be back in the main session now. Hope you all had good discussions within the different breakout rooms. Yeah, what we can do now is maybe very quickly just share some of the outcomes of your discussions. I'll pull up the Miro board here. And perhaps we can kind of have a very quick summary of some of the things that each of you discussed and considered for the different ideas. Maybe also the idea that you're thinking about and how you're planning to kind of scale and implement it. So yeah, maybe we can start with the Milan team. If you guys want to walk us through your idea and some of the things that you discussed in terms of implementing your idea.
Is someone able to speak? I've just started driving. Otherwise, I will try to. But if someone
I can. Fede, vuoi parlare da te?
No, vai pure, effettivamente, che hai scritto.
Allora, switching between languages. So the idea is basically to support the circular neighborhood hubs. So to create some places where you can share tools, objects, and things, but also where you can create some. Exactly.
This one, right? This is the
Where you can also create some place where to educate and to share knowledge about the circular economy. There is also a last point that we just added now. That's also like a place where you can there can be a center point for to recycle items. So whatever you throw away can also be a collection within the neighbors, rather, because usually in Milan they're very far from the city center, so it's very difficult whenever you want to get rid of something to find a place where you can actually throw it. And it can also be a place where somehow in this sharing the know-how is not just about circular economy, but also about know-how, for example, of artisans, creative people, designers, and so on. So there is like this circularity embedded in the place where you bring your clothes and then you have designers that can fix it or things like that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe you wanna go through the idea or just okay?
Yeah,
and
I'll go back to the scalability plan.
We basically like find the first part. Do you mind to zoom in slightly?
Yeah, of course. I'll zoom in some more.
Yeah. So to scale the idea, we basically put together first the Comune di Milano, but also the main part to scale it would be to find the neighborhoods where you can do it, some locations. as well as we were thinking to start with a very basic model as a concept that you can replicate very easily, but then adding some localization by neighborhood. It's necessary to identify the stakeholders to be involved and engage the citizens. That can be done through events or through anyway communication and let's say marketing. The same idea can be used and can involve startups, the public organization, NGO, because you can also work with, in this sharing the know-how can also be involved retired people, old people with their know-how, also about old artisanship, manufacturers, and ethnic groups like immigrants, for example, that can be involved into the activities. The suburbs, that for sure, because in Milan, especially I guess everywhere, but in Milan there are a lot of work to give a new life again to the suburbs, to include more people and to be more inclusive. And then the schools, and especially the technical institute, that is some kind of school that are very technical, and they basically teach you the art of work rather than just like more generic knowledge. And AMSA, which is the waste management company in Milan. The resources to scale the locations, the manpower, because for sure you need to find both the people that can share their knowledge, but also in terms of coordinators, so who is gonna manage the venue, the team that can work there, volunteers and people that somehow work around the location, the funds for the project, and then somebody that keep bringing new ideas that I guess is gonna be part anyway of the coordinator team. The idea anyway would be to involve the Comune di Milano with the Beppe Sala team that Federico, Gloria and Carlotta are also part of. So somehow it's a kind of exercise to see if this idea can be implemented directly in Milano through the Comune.
Great.
And then yeah, in the implementation, we put some generic timelines, ideally to have the project ready by the 2022, like at least the second half of 2022. So in the first part, like the whole part of define the coordinators, who will be the people in charge of working in this, and for all the first part of the activities, it can be done by the Circular Economy Club Milano, supported by the Comune, if it's going to be the Comune di Milano. Identify the key actors and the places, the location, the startup, the people to be involved. And then there is a second part who is going to be more in charge of the coordinator team and where we can support, but then it's going to be the team directly involved with the project that is more pragmatic. So like to organize, to understand which tools and needs to be bought and shared. And there is also a whole marketing activities that we can support, but there should be like part of the coordinator team or marketing team that somehow can push for the initiatives.
Great. Yeah, no, that's a very nice idea, and has a lot of, I think, parallels to some of the what the other teams are working on as well. So it would be interesting to also see how some of the learnings that you have as you build out and implement this project could also be shared with the Africa team, for example, the Portuguese team. And the team
yeah, we didn't put any budget on cost because for now, I mean, there is no direct people involved, so it's just sort of like just putting random.
Yeah, also because like we try to involve at this point the people from the Comune initiative we mentioned, but they couldn't join tonight. But for sure we will propose that, because like we've been asked to come up with some initiatives to propose them to bring to the attention of Beppe Sala for his next elections, etc. So we will probably come up with more detailed information any sooner. Like this will not stop here, it's just a starting point.
No, that's great. And it's great to see that you already are in partnership or in contact with the Comune to get them involved and actually make this a reality. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
really
actually,
excited.
it's been a parallel things. Like we've been involved in this initiative from Community Milano, working on 40 networks, thematic networks. One of these is circular economy. Francesca, Gloria, me, Federico, also Bruna, and other people who joined today are from these initiatives, and like we thought it would be useful to bring the things together. Just to let you know. Also, like, you know, like I remember you asked me a few months ago, like Beppe Sala is within that network of majors around Europe or around the world. You remember that?
Right.
And these, like, yeah, exactly. So probably after that, we like the same idea could be replicated by other majors and other circular economy clubs, probably. I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's a great idea. So yeah, definitely the scalability potential is there for other countries, other communities as well. Great. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, really excited to see how the idea develops further. Yeah, maybe we can go to the Florence team. I know that you all had some kind of thinking around modifications to your idea that you were considering from last time. And let me just go over to the idea itself here. Yeah, does one of you want to kind of walk through some of the discussions that you all had?
Yeah, sorry, Riccardo had to leave for another meeting, so I'll try to explain very briefly what we did. Basically, we changed the idea at the origin, and we shift from finding the solution to the problem of leather waste to finding the problem at the origin. So we came up with this idea of creating a kind of platform of partners where everybody can share the problems they are having in the tanneries, for example, and maybe find a partner to team up with and find a solution for this problem in order to stimulate the adoption of circular solutions. This is something that does not exist right now in the leather industry. They all speak about the fact that they are reusing a byproduct of the meat industry, so they are circular by name, but they do very little to implement circular solution in the process. There's so much space, and we have a lot of knowledge and technology. So the thing we came up with is like to create a platform where all these stakeholders can meet and find solutions and try to cooperate in order to implement circular solutions. This is very briefly and broadly our idea. We will find a way to implement it. It would be easy because we are in contact with a lot of consortium. In Italy, we have this lack to have a lot of consortium of enterprises, and they work quite well. So maybe in coming months, we will share with you some outcomes.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's great to also see that you guys are thinking about the idea that you had before and how to kind of refine it and make it create a bigger impact and really address the problem. So that's great to see. And then, yeah, maybe last but not least, the Portugal team. Unfortunately, the Africa team had some emergencies that they had to attend to, so they weren't able to attend. So we'll skip them for today. But yeah, maybe the Portugal team can share with us some of their thinking around their idea. And I believe the idea was still to kind of create these intergenerational connections between elderly nursing home residents, et cetera, in schools. Is that right, Mariana?
Yes, that's correct. So right now we are facing some challenges in order to try to start to engage with councils and with the municipalities to implement this idea, because we will have elections in September. And so the elections are to select the new representatives for the councils and for the municipalities. So right now everything just stopped because they are only thinking about the election. So it's quite hard, because we tried to actually start this conversation with these actors, but it was really difficult because at the moment they are not giving priority to this kind of activities. But we absolutely want to implement, and so we were thinking, in order to scale this idea, first we actually have to have the opportunity to do a pilot in some locality, in some small city, in order to make sure everything is tested and that we can implement, that we can learn with the results, and we can improve the project with these learnings. Then we are thinking to develop a report with all these learnings and all these impacts, and to structure a method that could be followed by all the cities that want to implement this initiative in their own cities. And from this method, we want to develop a kit. So a kit with learning resources, with presentations, with templates, with several tools and resources that they can use in order to start this initiative in their own cities. And so our idea was, we were mainly working in this idea, what kind of we were debating what kind of resources we develop in order to put this kit together. And so we think about the presentations to use during the first meeting in the elderly, in the day centers and in the schools, the templates, for example, for sending an email for the local councils or for inviting new partners. So it's something similar with the aRoundTable, but in this associated to this project. And so our goal is to develop a presentation of this idea this month. Then we will try to find partners by September, because in August, at least in Portugal, nobody does nothing because everybody is on vacations. And so in September, we will try to talk with schools, with day centers, in order to motivate them to participate as well. Then we will try to develop a plan with all these organizations. And by October, after the elections, we will try to start the communication once again with the local municipalities and councils. And then by November, December, we will try to understand if there is any call for public, for funds, for European funds. And we want to start the first pilot by January.
Very nice.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And yeah, it's great to see that you're also thinking about doing it in a sort of methodology kit fashion, so that even if you physically aren't creating these programs in different cities around Portugal or even other places, that anyone can kind of access your kit or implementation kit and kind of try to replicate, and maybe also give you sort of feedback on that approach. Very nice. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of your ideas. And like I said, these Miro boards and everything are going to continue to be available. There's also the Slack community. I think all of you should be added onto that as well. So feel free to use those resources to continue these discussions and build out these ideas, especially since it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity to bring them forward to key decision makers, city councils, others in your communities, to really make it happen. And then very quickly, we will kind of compile the outcomes from this session as well, and make it available so that the general public is aware of all the different steps that you all took to kind of get to this point, and what the sort of ideas that you're working on are, and what you hope to achieve. And one of the things that we're thinking is how can we continue to support all of you? I know this is sort of the last official session of a roundtable, but of course, your individual groups' journeys are just kind of starting now with these different ideas. So over the summer and the fall, you know, we hope that you kind of continue to build out these ideas. You already have some initial plans in terms of how to do so. And from our end, what we hope to do is maybe in August or September, organize a session where you all can kind of present and almost pitch these different ideas. Just to mention, you know, what your idea is, what you'd like to work on, any sort of progress you've made already, and what are some of the key challenges or roadblocks you're having. And we will try to invite lots of different stakeholders who might be able to provide advice or support or mentorship, and see how they can kind of contribute in any way to your ideas. And we'll try to tap into different kind of networks. Feel free to also use that session to invite stakeholders from your communities, either the municipality or key decision makers, so they have a chance to kind of hear your idea and also see how it kind of originated, and might be a way to kind of have additional meetings with them or sessions with them to get them more involved. And then in October of this year, we'll have Circular Cities Week, the big kind of circular economy club series, and we're planning to also highlight your projects then, and see if we can get additional exposure and interest from key stakeholders then, to kind of learn about your idea and provide different kinds of support. So we're hoping that, you know, those two events, even after the aRoundTable event series, will kind of spark some support and interest in your ideas, and hopefully you all will be able to kind of use those events to see how to get additional resources and exposure to make your ideas a reality. Yeah, I don't know if you all had sort of any questions or any comments or concerns from all of this. Would love to also get your feedback about, you know, the whole aRoundTable process. We'll probably try to connect with you all afterwards to understand, you know, how this whole event series went, what we could do to improve it. We're also trying to see how we could make this a yearly thing, so that even next year we will have a similar sort of 4-part series, and you can kind of bring these ideas and build them out further or think about new projects. And we'll try to involve also other communities from around the world to do something similar. And yeah, it's just meant to kind of spark collaboration and kickstart circular projects like the ones you all came up with.
I just wanted to say that I think it will be interesting to think in a possible Erasmus Plus application in order to continue this this initiative for another years, because I think this method could be applied. I think I already said that in a previous meeting, but I think this method could be applied for different contests, and for example, for universities and for schools, in order to motivate them to think about new projects that they can implement in their own communities. And using this, using a Erasmus Plus application, you could have the funds in order to have more resources and more that could improve this initiative, and that could even promote the creation of a kit to another people that want to implement this initiative in other different contexts. So it's just an idea.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I think one of the things that we're trying to see how we can do is formalize this initiative. Right now, it's sort of us coming together as individuals. There's no kind of legal entity that could even receive these funds. So we're trying to see how we could kind of position aRoundTable and the methodology and the toolkit under a sort of legal organization in a way. That would be some kind of nonprofit or foundation that would be able to then accept grants and funds to kind of financially support this moving forward. So looking at different options, and we'll of course update all of you on how those are going. And then of course would love to kind of hear ideas from you in terms of how we could access different kinds of grants and funds, and also access different kinds of opportunities, like you said, schools, or maybe even the startup community, et cetera, to see if this kind of methodology could be useful for them to develop different initiatives locally.
In Florence, we are trying to open an association behind the Circular Economy Club Florence, so we would be able to get access to this kind of funds in order to promote initiatives. So we are thinking about this in Florence.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, would love to kind of exchange knowledge about that process. I know it's probably not the easiest, all this administrative stuff.
In Italy, it's very complicated, but I think everyone.
Yeah, we also created an association in May.
Oh, that's great.
So behind the circular, it's not the Circular Economy Club because Circular Economy Club doesn't enable you to sell things or to have some funds related to your activities, but we also started an association, so we're also available to participate in this kind of initiatives.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, it would be also interesting to see how maybe all of the different associations that you all start could kind of come together in this initiative as some kind of joint venture or collaboration.
Yeah.
Shai, sorry, I have a question too. So maybe I missed this part, I'm not sure. So you were talking about a kind of support for the ideas, mentors or whatever. How does it work exactly? I mean, are you going to contact people according to the projects who have been submitted, or I don't know, you have a team to help us maybe with the business plan or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, what we were going to do is essentially kind of try to connect with different circular economy organizations. Maybe, for example, like the Impact Hub community, perhaps, you know, some of the kind of bigger organizations like PACE, World Economic Forum, et cetera. I don't know if any of those very large players would be very interested, but at least kind of reach out to those kinds of existing associations that are trying to support community circular economy engagement, and let them know about aRoundTable, let them know that you all already have some very nice concrete ideas that you'd like to initiate in your communities, and see if they would be interested in providing, mentorship, perhaps funding, perhaps other resources to make these ideas a reality, as a way to not only support circular economy locally in your communities, but also see how they can kind of import those ideas into their own. It wasn't there isn't kind of a hit list or a target list of organizations that we already have in mind. I think that's what we'll try to figure out, who is the best audience to invite to these sessions. But I do know that, for example, in October for Circular Cities Week, there's a lot of organizations that are quite high level that are already engaged in different activities that will be kind of looking at what events are happening around that time. So hopefully that event in October will certainly attract the kinds of high profile decision makers or stakeholders that could provide meaningful support to your projects.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us or reach out to us on Slack. Like I said, all of these templates are available. So even if you want to kind of go through the process again and think about other issues or topics in your communities, feel free to do so. I think you all have edit access still to even the previous Miro boards. And then, yeah, we'd love to kind of, we'll try to connect with you all individually and separately to see if we can get some feedback on this and get your thoughts on ways we can kind of make this process better for next year and beyond. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. It's the first time that we've kind of done this from beginning to end. So it's been an interesting learning experience for us. And thank you for being patient with us as we try to test out different things to see what works.
Thank you.
Thank you.